People think, oh my goodness, if I'm going to get my trust in place, that means I'm going to die tomorrow. Right. Well, I use the analogy like, well, when you get in your car and you put a seatbelt on, does that mean you're going to get in a car crash right then?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Million Dollar Destiny, where we help you tap into the frequency of money, wealth, and legacy. I am so excited for today's topic. I feel like a lot of the things that have to do with money and passing on generational wealth, people don't want to look at because maybe death is part of it, and they feel like, that's a little bit too morbid to think about. However, there is a guaranteed in life, and that is we are going to pass. And when we pass, maybe it won't be as scary if we can take the time now to plan ahead. And that's why I am so excited today to bring to you this special guest. She's had decades in the industry. She's a principal in this company in estate planning. And I love the name of her company, Integrity, because everything we stand for in this show is about having a kingdom lens through doing money, wealth, and legacy. And so when a company stands for integrity in what they do, how can you not respect that? And she has a great track record with our firm. Everybody loves working with her. I only hear incredible things about Dina Atkinson. And if you check her out today, you're going to feel the same way. So let me bring her on right now. What we're going to talk about today is, what is estate planning? Do you need it? When can you start it? Why should you have it? What are the most important things that you should take away today? Put on your listening ear, your thinking cap, grab your pen and pad so you could take some notes. So welcome to Dina Atkinson.
Hello.
Hi, Dina. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for coming today. You're so busy. I'm so busy, but we felt so compelled that now more than ever, people really need to hear this information about how to protect themselves. So I would really love to open this up with asking you, what is estate planning? What is it?
Well, overall, it's not a one size fits all for everybody, right? It's very individual. A lot of estate planning has to do not just with the finances that you have, it's the emotion behind your family and the personality. That's why it's so important to understand the full picture in developing your estate plan. So, but overall, estate planning rule of thumb is you plan for the worst, you hope for the best. And it's basically just taking control of your estate, regardless of what happens under any scenario. And it also involves not just death, it can involve incapacitation and disability. So again, we look at all levels of things and potential things that could happen, and we establish control. So you're not in crisis mode. Things are planned for your family. And, you plan for today, you can make changes tomorrow because no one really knows what tomorrow's going to bring.
So what I heard is you can start the structure now, but as life changes and your understanding changes, you can tweak things as you go.
Yeah, because a lot of times, I've dealt with thousands of clients over the years. I've been doing this a few decades. And so developing the plan, what happens with some people is they try to overthink what's going to happen tomorrow. Right. And, you really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We really don't. As much as we would like to think, we don't. So what you do is you plan for how things are today, knowing that we can make those simple changes tomorrow, depending on what changes in your life, your family, or even the law. So, so you can take it in a stepping step structure, not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring.
I love that, because that really takes the fear away of overanalyzing and just start now. Like not in this case, but in other cases, I've heard other coaches say, like, just do it messy. Just do it imperfect, because at least you're taking that first step. And as you go, you correct. Like a spaceship going to the moon, it doesn't just go from A to B. It is making constant pivots and recalculations to get there. And
Yeah.
so if we can take that mindset with our own lives and planning for the future, I think I love what I'm hearing. You can start now. And then as your needs change, and you just shift as life shifts. Nothing is
Yeah.
static.
Yeah. Because we're never going to promote procrastination.
Mm,
Because really things can change in a day. I've over the years, I've heard it happen to my clients, and it's actually happened to me personally too.
mm.
And it doesn't matter what age you are. Things can happen at any age. So you really plan for today and just have your affairs in order and hopefully live a long, beautiful life. But, one never knows. You really don't. So, a lot of people think, oh my goodness, if I'm going to get my trust in place, that means I'm going to die tomorrow.
Right.
Well, I use the analogy when you get in your car and you put a seatbelt on, does that mean you're going to get in a car crash right then? It's just taking the protections in any scenario and do it today. You can't wait till tomorrow because it might be too late,
I love that analogy. And especially after going through COVID, it's like taking the precautionary preventative act is wise. I feel like this is a very wise, loving action to take, to plan for the ones that you love around you, because if something happens, it's the people around us that are going to have to hold the weight.
No
And
doubt.
yeah, and so our two businesses really work well together because it's about protection, it's about health, it's about life, it's about assets. So you were about to say something about your own life where you experienced, and then you talked about it's never too young or too late. So when is a good time to talk to someone like you about looking ahead? And what does that first conversation look like?
I mean, a lot of people really start getting their affairs in order. And it's amazing the last decade how much our business has expanded with younger families. So I love that. And I think I blame that on social media because of education. Younger families are, younger parents are becoming educated. Wow, I need this in place for my family, for their kids, because they love their children. So, basically it's when you care about what happens to your loved ones, to your family. If you have kids, you got to protect them. Given something happens to you, there's guardianship in place. The trust can hold on to assets to help support and raise them. So, it's really, the one person I can't help in estate planning is someone who doesn't care.
Right.
So as long as you care and love your family, then that's the person that needs to get their plans in order. If you don't care, then you're set. You're in good shape.
Right.
I can't help you if you don't care.
What about a single person that doesn't have a spouse or children?
Well, I mean, a lot of single people still have passions. Do they love animals? Well, they can leave their estate to the Humane Society or to a cause that they feel a passion for, or even, like you're beautiful. You said a prayer before, leave it to a church,
Yeah.
Or to some cause that they, really have a passion for. Better than going to the government or going, to an unuseful cause,
So right there. So that's, if they don't have a trust, what would it look like? Like they have money, like nobody knows when they're going to die. So they die, they're single, they have money in their bank account. Maybe they have a home, maybe they have some investments. What happens if they don't have anything in place as far as estate planning?
Well, what happens is, obviously when you die, you can't sign for yourself, right? So no one has rights to your property, really, even if you're a child or even a spouse, if like you're on title and your husband or wife isn't, they don't even have rights. It would still go through the court system. So if there is no trust, then certain assets have to be signed off by a judge. So it would have to get a signature and authorization by the courts, by a judge, and that hearing is called probate.
I was just going to ask if that's what probate is.
Yeah, it's a public hearing. Some states, it's much more of a nightmare than others. Obviously California is one of the worst. 2 years, on average, very expensive. Other states, the waiting is not as long, but still relinquishing control to a court. to a judge. So it
Right.
has to go through the court systems and gets approval and written off. And, on the other side of the spectrum, a trust basically does not go through the court systems. It's a contract that the client owns and controls. And when the client dies, the trust is still alive and functioning, and the successor trustee takes over.
Wow. So I've heard that like when parents pass away and leave a home to the children and it has to go to probate, they actually end up having to like pay money to get the real estate. Like it can be a really bad deal for the heirs when the parents thought they were doing something good for the children, leaving something
Yes.
behind, but it went through probate.
Yeah, and it's incredibly expensive in some states more than others. Again, in California, it can be up to 5% of your gross estate value, and your estate's being billed. And again, long waiting list, not a pleasant experience.
So it sounds like to me, if you have any cash or assets, it sounds like everybody should have something in place in estate planning because we're all working towards something greater. And if we have, children, we're wanting to leave something behind. I just feel like this is something important that almost should be a standard procedure.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I'm very passionate about what I do and by doing a good job.
Yeah.
And, even with younger families that don't even own property and they have life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So, bottom line, if you have a beneficiary of a life insurance policy, be an individual, they really literally can do whatever they want with that money, right?
Yeah.
They get a death benefit. Now it's their money. There's certain wishes that the, owner wanted to take place, but they can do whatever they want. So if you put the beneficiary of those policies to be a trust,
Mm-hmm.
then the money goes into a trust account, and then the trust spells out how that death benefit is to be utilized. And it's a contract, so it has to follow through the terms of what the trust says.
Yeah.
So you're controlling how that money is spent.
I think that's so important because the worst thing we can do is give a windfall, give too much to too little. I had a mentor say that to me once. The worst thing you could do is give someone too much to too little, like too much information. If you teach calculus to a first grader, like that doesn't make sense. So to give a couple $1,000,000 to a 13-year-old, what are we asking for? So trouble. And I
Right.
think giving that wisdom, like these are the trigger points of when money can be distributed. They have to do XYZ, and we get to set those ourselves, right?
Yeah. And, I think the percentage of people that blow through an inheritance within like a 9-month period is very high.
No.
So what I'm seeing a lot of parents wanting to do for their children is
Yeah.
create a legacy.
Yeah.
So it's again distributed over a period of time, age 18 for college or continuing education,
Mhm.
and then the balance at older ages, or even you can't have access to the money unless you buy a business or a car or, or a home, or you have to invest the money in a certain investment. You can only have access to income or, I don't want the property sold, for a certain period of time, again, really control that distribution. And you're actually doing the child a benefit.
Huge.
Because I actually personally know people who inherited money at a young age and they blew it and they
Yeah.
are so regretful.
Totally.
Easy to spend money. We all know that.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
so sad because if we're not taught the wisdom of managing wealth, it's almost like there's safety guards.
Right.
There's safety guards, and we have to be passing on the wealth with the wealth knowledge of how to
Mhm.
manage it and keep it growing. So can the next generation utilize the same trust? Can that trust just keep on going?
Yeah. It can be generation by generation for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. There's life estates. We do all types of estate planning. Majority of our trusts are revocable, but we do irrevocable, and we do, the generation trust too. So absolutely. It can live for generations. I want my grandkids or great grandkids to have that rental property, on the beach, so it cannot be sold so you can absolutely control that.
Now, would I want to put all types of investments in there? in that one trust or have multiple types of trusts?
Well, there's never a one size fits all answer, so it depends. I mean, but some money is not considered a trust asset, like any qualified money, retirement accounts, IRAs. Those beneficiaries are listed with the financial institution. But basically, other trust assets, I mean, personal property, you can even assign businesses to the trust. But there's other people that want to have separate property and separate trust, businesses and separate trusts. So you can have, you can have several trusts. So it depends. There's not a one size fits all answer.
Got it.
And I
Because
am seeing like older people that get remarried and they have kids from separate marriages. They get two single trusts, so they each control their 50%.
oh, wow, that's wise. That's so modern. That probably didn't exist 50 years ago as
Exactly.
commonly. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, the strategies change with time. And so, yeah, I was asking because like real estate, how would I know when to have an LLC or to put it, do you put it LLC and then the LLC in the trust, or is it just very personalized? And that's why coming to you is is more beneficial than just going onto like an online platform, is because we're all so different.
Yes. And there's, again, never a one size fits all answer. So, liability issues, yes, you put those rental properties in an LLC. Some people want the trust and the LLC to be the same entity. Others, you can assign the LLC to the trust upon your death. So, there's different ways to go about accomplishing, goals. So, it depends, not a
Yeah.
one size fits all answer. And that's why we get to know the client. And again, you can even set it up one way today and we can make those changes, down the road as well.
Awesome. Now, what's the whole scope of what a person should check off on their list? Like a will, a trust, like what are all the things that you think people should be aware of? Because let's assume that the viewer doesn't really know about this subject. And here's Dina, the expert. What would you want them to walk away with, knowing that like here's like a checklist of what you should have as your strategy, your goal?
Well, I mean, the one answer is just control,
Mm,
period. Again, given in any scenario, incapacitation, and of course, death, like you said, it's guaranteed that's going to happen. So it's just establishing control. So, in our trust package is obviously the trust. There's a pour over will in conjunction with the trust that pours items through the will, and into the trust, like cars and bank accounts. We have a healthcare directive that you can assign someone to work with doctors if you're unable, and you go through and you make those decisions about pulling the plug and donations of organs, et cetera. And then we've got the power of attorney, so someone can take care of your financial affairs if you're unable. So it's really the full package. The trust takes care of all of your assets, personal, clothing and furniture and jewelry and all your financial accounts. That again, the IRAs are not trust assets, but they're listed within the trust so they can, not be overlooked when you die. It's really, again, covering any and all scenarios that could occur that one doesn't know or is, can plan for the worst and hope for the best.
wow. Wow. That's so useful. So, what I'm hearing is there is a whole scope, and your firm offers all of these services, of course, because it's all part of estate planning. So, what she just said is everything from medical directives. If you get hurt and incapacitated, you want someone that you've ahead of time thought of who is the person you've assigned to take care of making decisions for you, or a will, or pouring all of that over into a trust. There's so many things, and take those down, rewind it, watch it over, and write those things down. And better yet, call Dina. I'll make sure all her information is listed in the show notes so that you can connect with her. And I'm sure she has a discovery call. Is that right? I don't want to like promise something
Yeah.
that you don't do.
Yeah. Well, the advantages that a trust can bring one person is different for another,
Yeah.
So, probate obviously is a big goal for a lot of people, but again, it can accomplish so much more power. So
Mm,
that's why I get to know the client and learn, and then we, mold the trust to fit their goals.
Wow.
So, I don't like to ever overcomplicate something either.
Right.
I really, really try to make it a simple process
Mhm.
and really almost make the client an expert by the time we're done.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what are some like nightmare cases, if that's even possible, when someone comes to you and like it's a mess and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to help you? Does that even ever happen?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times I go see, like, I actually just recently did a trust for a client, a husband and wife, and they have one child together, and he has children from another marriage, and I mean, they cannot decide on the distribution of how this is. She wants 100% to go to their child together. He
Oh,
wants it also to go to his children. So, I mean, she now wants him out of the entire trust altogether. I think it's actually provoked some issues in their marriage. So, very emotional decisions that can happen when you're putting the trust together. That's why I
wow.
even suggested, well, why don't you just control your 50% and he can control his 50% of the estate?
So, thank you for sharing that. Did I cut you off? Was there something you
No,
wanted?
no.
Well,
Sometimes I can talk too much. So
no,
good.
not at all. We're doing great because this is all serving, the audience, and it's serving me because I'm taking advantage of learning from you. So, knowing that that is something that happens out there, is there a preventative when people are coming into a second marriage together and there's other children, like just like that scenario? Is there kind of like not a, like how a prenup is, but like what's a conversation someone should have? Maybe something like that before we. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I've learned this through life, not just estate planning in my own life. You can only control yourself, right?
Yeah.
So if you can't control your spouse's decisions and just control your portion, at
Yeah.
least. Yeah, I even had a call last week with a gentleman that he bought property with his ex-wife, and he's been paying on the mortgage, and I don't know if they're going to have to go through some kind of divorce, hearing. They're already divorced, but it was supposed to be settled. So she won't sign off on the property now, and it should be his property. And so I said, well, while you're going through this court proceeding about who gets the property, at least put your 50% in the trust, because if you die now, then she's going to be 100% owner, because
Wow.
he wants it for his new wife.
Right.
So there's all these kind of scenarios that could take place. So while this is going on, which it could take years to settle, at least control your 50%.
Okay, so how long does it take to set up a trust? Because if somebody, I'm thinking, as soon as you buy a property or thinking of like it's about to go in that direction, you should put this in place already if you don't have one. So how long does it take?
Well, it's really, the process is 2 appointments. So what we do is we go through a questionnaire. I actually do everything for the client. I don't like to send the questionnaire and have them fill it out, because the questionnaire is very black and white. So if I go through the questionnaire with them, it brings color, because it can really maximize, again, the value based upon getting to know the client. So I fill the worksheet out for them. It's like an initial 1 hour meeting. And it takes the office 2 to 4 weeks on average to process the trust. Once there's a few to-dos. The client needs to get us over deeds and things like that. If we get everything that we need, then it takes a 2 to 4 week window. And then the client gets the trust, and then we have another appointment to go through the trust together, educate them on it. And then there's a couple to-dos, walking it through for simplicity and making sure everything's done to perfection.
Wow. That's awesome.
So within a month is generally, and then, if you ever acquire additional property, there's paperwork that you just submit to your realtor, and they can put the property into the trust. So once the trust is in place, there are some changes that we would have to be part of. That's like contractual verbiage, changes of beneficiaries and directives. We would have to do an amendment. But if they acquire additional property or assets, those are changes they can actually do themselves.
Awesome. So once you set it up and you get the professional help from an attorney like you, um, besides what you said, are there any ongoing costs? Is that you do it once? What can a person expect?
The only ongoing cost is if we do an amendment. So, that would be that changes of the verbiage within the trust. So that would be, an amendment cost, depending on the range of the work.
Yeah.
So that's the only ongoing cost. Again, if they acquire additional assets or properties, they can actually do that themselves.
This is so important. This should be like, I have a list of like standard procedures every human should know to do from birth. Like, as soon as you get your social security number, you should get $1 million baby plan. The parent or the grandparents should start investing for the child so they can, like, time and money compounded, like, give that child an account immediately. And then have a trust. Have all the things in place ahead of time so the rest of the time you have this structure of protection. And it's protecting not just you, but everyone else around you so that they can, like, when you have structure, you can actually be more free because you know you're
Yes.
safe.
Right.
You can actually be more creative. You can go after your dreams, which this show is really all about, fulfilling your destiny. We all came to this planet to fulfill something so important, not to just worry about how can I acquire and accumulate, but also to be able to focus on why we're on the planet. And I think having a trust and doing the work that you are an expert in is so important because it'll allow not just the person who created it, but the next generations to have this boundary of safety to focus. If they have the money set up and they have the wisdom of how to manage the money, now they're liberated to not focus on that, but to focus on what can I do to improve humanity, improve the planet, improve society. Like, that's why we're here.
Oh, that is wonderful. I love that. I do. That was beautiful.
That's what you're doing. That is
Yeah.
the big key part that you're playing in all of us. All right, guys. Well, hang tight. We're going to go to a little break and we'll be right back. Are you looking for support with your retirement strategy? If so, we'd love to help you at the Valorum Group. If you have a 401k, an IRA, or a pension, if you have an inheritance or a settlement and you're not sure how to protect and grow it, give us a call. We're here to help you reach your goals. Protecting your family's future with the Living Trust has never been easier. Estate planning is for everyone, including you. If you want tax advantages, avoid probate court, and transfer your legacy according to your vision, then reach out to Dina Atkinson at Integrity Estate Planning Services and use the code Mary Huang for excellent care. Okay, welcome back, everybody. What we were just talking about a moment ago with Dina Atkinson is that it's so important for us to go ahead and think ahead and plan, to have structures in place so we have boundaries of protection so that we can focus on pursuing our destiny, fulfilling why we're even here. And you can easily do this. Just one person has to start it for their lineage, and it can go on and on and on. And it's so powerful because there's different trigger points of how that money and the assets you've got in the trust is allowed to go into future generations to access that wealth little by little. So that, number one, we want them to have the wealth, but we also want them to have the wealth knowledge of how to manage and keep it growing for the next generations after them. So welcome back, everybody. Now, Dina, I want to shift gears a little bit. I'm curious. You said that you are passionate about this. What's your story? Why are you so passionate about this?
Well, I mean, I've been doing this for 20 some odd years. And basically I just think it's so important, for you to plan for your family because, I've seen the devastation that occurs with people when they don't plan, and you're really doing your loved ones a favor by just getting your affairs in order. And, procrastination is nobody's friend. So it's just a lot of people aren't even aware of what takes place. So it's just an education process of making people aware of the devastation that can occur if you don't establish control of your estate. Wow. So, I mean, I've seen probably one of my most memorable experiences was we had to do an emergency trust for a client that was in the hospital.
Mm.
And so what we do, we did an emergency within 24 hours. And the client, the whole family was there in the hospital. And, I delivered it, notarized. And then when I left, the daughter reached out to me that evening and she said, he died within an hour of you arriving. And so I think he was holding on, for me to get there to get everything signed and in place. So, I don't recommend that route. He was lucky enough to get it in place. I mean, I don't know if I was in traffic and didn't get there in time, maybe it would have been too late, but I actually cried when I heard that story. So,
Wow.
the whole family was just in anguish. I've been at people's beds like that a few times where someone was, on cancer and was like 70 pounds and, could barely sign, but she had to be aware of what she was signing or else, you can't do it. It's too late. So it's happened to me several times and that is not what you want to do. And again, they were lucky enough to get it right in time, but again, do it while you're healthy and in control. And, I've just seen it and I've heard the stories. And again, it's happened to me in my personal life. If you don't plan the devastation that can occur. So,
Wow. Is that something that you want to share? You don't have to.
um, well, I mean, my ex-husband had a stroke when my kids were really young and, didn't really have affairs in order. So it's been a little bit of a struggle and he passed away young. So it's tough, and again, that's why I have a passion about even younger families,
Yeah.
getting their affairs in order because, he was 48 when he had his stroke. And so, perfectly fine 24 hours prior.
Wow.
So, no one knows. So you got to just get it together for your family, and, we make the process nice and simple. What I do is I take the order, I submit the paperwork to, our office where attorneys proof and paralegals process the paperwork. And then we mail it to you, walking you through the entire process. We don't like to overcomplicate things, make it simple. And, we take the excuse out of procrastination, so we can make it nice and simple. And again, you can't forecast what's going to happen tomorrow. So plan today and we can make those changes tomorrow.
Wow. I'm sorry for your loss. And thank you so much for being vulnerable like this with me. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when people are passionate about something, I know that they personally had to go through like a hardship in that category of their expertise to have that passion about wanting to help other people make sure they're set up correctly so that others don't have to go through what they did. So I really appreciate that about you. Thank you for sharing your heart. I appreciate you. Now, back to that, deathbed situation with the older person, or I don't even know how old they are, but how does one get to that place? Like, do they just like find out all of a sudden? Is it just a matter of procrastination? Like, I guess every situation is different, but yeah.
I can't even tell you how many times. Well, I've probably been on the deathbeds, probably 15 times. And it is procrastination, it really,
It's knowing they have to do it, but they keep pushing it off. So that's procrastination.
Yes. Denial or, again, some people really have the philosophy if they do it, that means something's going to happen,
Yeah, they do, right?
Yeah. So, it's just procrastination. Or, what some people, when we do the trust, my company does the trust, they basically are like, oh my God, this is much easier than I thought it was going to be.
Right.
So we, again, make it simple. And people sometimes are like, wow, this was not, we thought this was going to be intimidating and like really complicated. No, it wasn't. And it was a pleasant experience, nice and simple. And it really is taking 2 hours of this person's time, of the client's time, 1 hour to fill out a questionnaire, another, either for me to deliver in person or to mail to go through the trust. It's 2 hours.
Oh my gosh. And you're so loving and caring. Like being in your care feels like I'm sitting in like a white glove. Like you're just like carrying, like, don't worry, I got you.
Yes,
You've
me
done
too.
it so much.
We've got the full team,
Yeah.
I don't wear all hats,
Yeah.
I really talk with the client. I build the relationship, get to know the client so we can really maximize the value that the trust brings and submit the paperwork to the office. I don't do paperwork. We've got the in-house paralegals and attorneys that do that. And then, again, we walk through the client of funding of the trust, because you can have the trust perfectly written, but if it's not properly funded, the contract means nothing.
Wow.
So
what does properly funded mean?
It means like any assets that would trigger probate has to be retitled. So like, for example, property, it needs to be retitled from the client's name into the name of the trust.
Right.
If it's an LLC, we can put the rental properties into the LLC and assign the LLC to the trust, but we can prepare all that paperwork. So that's called funding. Again, maybe perhaps that life insurance policy, we need to change the beneficiary to be the trust, big important detail for some people. Sometimes bank accounts or financial accounts, you need to do what's called a TOD, transfer of death, but to put the beneficiary to be the trust. So again, we walk through, those are very imperative parts of the trust, is again, funding. Once the contract and the verbiage is perfect, that is critical too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, as far as homework goes, do you want the client to prepare some things, have all of this information ready to come to that meeting with you? Or do you sit with them first and then send them off to do homework? I imagine they need to know what they're bringing to put into the trust.
Well, just to be honest, I've been doing this for so long. My biggest hurdle in this business is procrastination. So in the past, people, what do I need to prepare? I would tell them, and they're, oh my gosh, let's put this off.
Right.
So what I tell people is you don't need to bring anything, because it's going to be different for you than it is the next person. So we'll go through the worksheet together, and I'll send you a follow-up email with just very simple bullet points of what I need from you or any decisions. Because a lot of times when I'm going through the worksheet with the client, I'm going to ask a question that they've never thought about.
I'm sure.
So, and I'm like, I don't want you to come up with the answer in 2 minutes or less. I'll send you an email itemizing what I need from you, and then, get back to me in a couple of days with those answers, and we can finalize your paperwork.
I love that. That's very similar to some of my processes too, when I work on the kind of retirement planning portion of it, because people procrastinate because it's in their head. It's this big, big task that's got all these beliefs in it, and it seems daunting. But when you sit with someone who does this all day long and for so many decades, and it's no big deal, you're getting that no big deal attitude, like just by proximity, by being with the person. Like, no, this is like, I do this all day long. It's easy. Let's go. And I think that's why it's so valuable to have this personal relationship and interaction with someone like you versus just going to, an online legal platform or something like that.
Yes, absolutely. And the legal online platform, you might be minimizing the value again that the trust could bring. And that's why I don't give clients worksheets anymore to fill out, because I'm going to ask questions that are going to dig in a little deeper and, and enhance again the value the contract can bring.
Yeah.
And then, talk them through, the fact that just don't overcomplicate with trying to forecast what tomorrow's going to bring, because you just don't know. So let's plan today, make those changes tomorrow.
I love that. Just start today, no matter where you are, just start so that you can pivot along the way, and keeping it so simple and so smooth makes it easy to do. Yeah. So Dina, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much for taking the time to share this information, giving us an inside peek to something that can be so daunting and chaotic in our minds. That's just too much. Let's just keep putting it off. That fear of looking at a segment of life that people don't want to look at, but making it simple and making it doable, because this is something we all have to deal with at some point. Why not do it now? So Dina, thank you so much. Any last words of what you think people like, any key takeaways, closing words?
Procrastination is nobody's friend. No one knows what tomorrow is going to bring. We really do not. So do yourself and your family a favor. Get your affairs in order today. You plan for the worst, hope for the best, and go hopefully live a long, beautiful life. Knowing everything is in order and in place given whatever happens. So again, we take complicated out of the equation. We make it nice and simple. 2 hours of your time. We need 1 hour to go through the questionnaire and 1 hour when you receive the trust.
Wow.
So, 2 hours of your time, anybody can find that time in their schedule. And again, we make it nice and easy, walk you through the entire process. We have the attorneys on staff that you can always speak to. That's part of our service that you can talk to for free.
Nice.
If you ever have questions, they're never charged. We only charge if we do paperwork.
Amazing. Amazing. Yes. And also you guys, your business model, tell me a little bit about your business model too.
We've grown a lot doing remote business. So I think COVID for that and Zoom, but the business model is, again, I pretty much handle the client correspondence, fill out the worksheet, everything's sent to the office, paralegals, attorneys approve it. And then again, I either deliver or it's mailed to the client and we walk through the client, make sure it's perfect. We're not done until perfection occurs, walk them through funding, and boom, it's in place.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. And guys, make sure you connect with Dina. Send your family members after you experience her yourself, because I know that they are very competitive as far as being economically accessible to the people, because they feel so passionate about making sure people are set up correctly. And then spread the word, because that's what it's all about, is helping other people we love get set up as well. So thank you, Dina, and I will see you next time.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks. All right, guys. Wow. Did you guys take notes? Did you guys listen? In order for us to be able to be liberated from the day-to-day worries of money and acquiring things, having something like this, it only takes an hour to sit down with her and then an hour to receive it. 2 hours total to get your structure in place to ensure that everybody around you knows that you loved them enough to create this structure that's going to allow them to perpetuate what you've worked so hard for. That way, everyone in your lineage gets to focus on the destiny of why they were created to be on the planet at this time. All right, you guys, I love you so much. Make sure you come back next week. We're going to talk all about kingdom entrepreneurship. Bye.